My name is Shelby Collins. I am 32 years old, and last March, my own father stood up in a courtroom and told a judge I was not his daughter. He called me an impostor, a fraud, a stranger who had crawled out of nowhere to steal what he believed was rightfully his, my mother's life savings, her house, everything she had spent 41 years building. He was loud, he was certain. He had a lawyer, a stack of papers, and a story he had rehearsed for weeks. What he did not have was the sealed envelope sitting in my lawyer's briefcase, the one from the Pentagon, the one that held 15 years of my life he had chosen to erase. The judge opened it, and after that, my father never spoke the same way again. Welcome back to Calm Drama Stories. This is where we share real-life inspired tales of family conflict, betrayal, and the quiet strength it takes to stand your ground. If these stories speak to you, drop a comment and be sure to subscribe. I live in Northern Virginia now. Small apartment, 12 minutes from work. I am a cybersecurity analyst at a private defense contractor, the kind of company where your badge gets scanned 3 times before you reach your desk, and nobody asks what you did over the weekend because half of them cannot answer either. I like routine. I wake at 5:15, coffee at 5:22, gym by 5:45. I am at my desk before 7, and I stay until the screen tells me I have been staring too long. 8 years in uniform will do that to you. The Army teaches you to build a day out of structure, and I never stopped. I enlisted at 18, straight out of a Greyhound station with a duffel bag and a GED I had earned 2 months earlier. Military intelligence. The specifics live in filing cabinets I will never see again, and most of my 20s exist in reports I am not allowed to discuss at dinner parties. Not that I go to many dinner parties. I am not mysterious. I am just trained to keep things in their proper compartments. Work stays at work. The past stays behind the door I closed at 17. Except it does not. Not really, because behind every compartment is a name you are trying not to think about, and behind every locked file is a family you walked away from, or a family that told you to walk. My father's name is Gerald Collins. He sells used cars in a town where everyone has already bought one. He has opinions about everything and regret about nothing. But before I tell you what he did in that courtroom, you need to understand what he did in 1999. I was 17. Senior year had just started, and I was holding a letter from the University of Virginia. Partial scholarship. Enough to cover tuition if I worked summers and kept my grades where they were. I showed it to my mother first. Ruth sat at the kitchen table and read it twice, pressing her finger under each line like she was memorizing it. Her eyes got wet, but she did not cry. She just said, "Good. This is good." Then Gerald came home. He ran a used car lot on Route 9, just past the Dairy Queen. Business was never great. Business was never terrible. It was the kind of place that survived on people who could not qualify for financing anywhere else, and Gerald treated that like a throne. He read the letter standing up, did not sit down, did not smile. "College is a scam," he said. "I need you at the lot." I told him I was going. He put the letter on the counter and pushed it toward me with 2 fingers, like it was contaminated. "You work for me, or you leave. Those are the options." My mother stood up. "Gerald." "Sit down, Ruth." She sat down. And I understood right then that this house had one voice, and it was not mine, and it was not hers. I went to my room. I packed 1 backpack, jeans, 3 shirts, the letter, $42 in cash. Gerald stood in the hallway. He did not try to stop me. He said, "Walk out that door and you are done. No calls. No coming back." I walked. It was 9:14 at night. I walked 2 miles to my Aunt Maggie's house in the dark, and I did not look back. Ruth was not a loud woman. She was not a brave one either, if you measured bravery by the things she said out loud. But she loved in a way that was constant, the way a porch light stays on whether you come home or not. Before the divorce, when I was small, she would sit in the rocking chair on the front porch every evening, a wooden chair with a creak on the left side. She would watch the street and wait for nothing in particular, just the day ending. She worked as a receptionist at the county hospital, answered phones, filed papers, directed people to the right wing. She earned enough to keep the lights on and not much more. But Ruth saved. She saved like it was breathing. $20 here, $50 there. She cut coupons for 30 years and put the difference in a savings account Gerald never knew about. After the divorce, I was 10 when it happened, Ruth kept the house. Gerald got the car lot and his debts. She stayed quiet. She raised me alone for 7 years, and when Gerald kicked me out, she did not fight him in that hallway. I used to resent that. I do not anymore. She was not surrendering. She was surviving. What I did not know until years later was this. Ruth never stopped talking to me. Not once. Not for a single year. After I left, Aunt Maggie became the bridge. I would write Ruth letters and mail them to Maggie's address. Maggie would hand-deliver them. Ruth would write back the same way. Her letters to Maggie's mailbox, Maggie's hands to mine. Gerald never checked Maggie's mail. He never asked. He assumed I was gone, and that Ruth accepted it. He was wrong about both. I turned 18 at a bus station in Richmond. I had spent the last 9 months at Maggie's, working shifts at a gas station and studying for my GED. The day I passed, I walked into a recruiting office and signed the papers before lunch. Army Intelligence. That is all I will say about the classification, because that is all I am allowed to say. The specifics belong to a world with acronyms I cannot spell out here, and facilities that do not appear on public maps. What I can tell you is this. I was good at it. I was quiet, detail-oriented, and I had spent 17 years learning how to read a room where one person held all the power. That turned out to be useful. I deployed 4 times. I earned 2 commendations that have since been partially declassified. I was promoted faster than anyone in my intake class. And for 8 years, I lived in a space between visible and invisible, present in the system, absent from every civilian database Gerald or his lawyer would ever think to search. Every time I came back stateside on leave, I drove to see Ruth. Never to Gerald's town. Always through Maggie. I would park 2 streets over from Ruth's house, and Maggie would bring her to a diner off the highway. Ruth kept every letter I sent in a tin box under her bed. Blue paint, chipped at the corners. She showed it to me once, the second year I was in. She opened the lid, and there they were, 12 letters, lined up by date. I read them twice each, she said. Once, when they arrive. Once before bed. I had a career Gerald could not pronounce, and a security clearance he could not imagine. But that tin box mattered more than any of it. Gerald married Donna Pryor 6 years after the divorce. Donna was 12 years younger, worked at a furniture showroom, and had a talent for spending money that did not yet exist. I know this because Ruth told me, in her letters. Not with bitterness. Ruth did not do bitter, but with the careful observation of someone watching a slow-motion accident from across the street. Gerald's car lot started bleeding in 2021. Inventory costs went up. Customers went to online platforms. He owed $120,000 to his business partner Dave Mercer, who had been patient for 2 years and was no longer patient. Donna did not adjust. New kitchen in 2022. A cruise to the Bahamas in 2023. Credit cards Gerald did not know about until the statements arrived at the house. By the time Ruth got sick in the fall of 2024, Gerald was drowning. He kept the facade going, smiling at Rotary Club meetings, shaking hands at the lot, telling anyone who listened that business was strong. But the numbers told a different story. 3 liens on the property, 2 missed payments on the truck, 1 very angry partner who wanted his money. Ruth knew. In one of her letters she wrote, "Gerald called last week. First time in 2 years. He asked how I was doing, but what he really wanted to know was whether I had a savings account. I told him I was fine. He did not ask again." Donna was the one who planted the seed. I did not know this at the time, but the text messages would surface later. Ruth had money, Donna told Gerald, and if something happens to her, you deserve half. She did not know about the will. Neither did Gerald. Not yet. Ruth was diagnosed with lung cancer in September of 2024. Stage 4. The doctor said 6 months. She made it to 5. I flew back 3 times in those 5 months. Each visit was arranged through Maggie. Same system, same secrecy. I would drive in after dark, park at Maggie's, and Maggie would bring me to the house. Ruth did not want to die in a hospital. She stayed home. Hospice nurses came twice a day. Maggie moved in for the last 3 weeks. I was not there when she passed. I was on a flight from Dulles when Maggie called. The voicemail said, "She went at 4:12 this morning. Peaceful. She asked me to tell you she was proud." The funeral was small. 18 people. I sat in the back row with Maggie. Gerald arrived in a dark suit, looking serious and sad and perfectly rehearsed. Donna stood behind him in a black dress and pearls, surveying the room like she was assessing property value. Gerald did not speak to me. I do not think he recognized me. 15 years changes a face, and he had stopped looking for mine a long time ago. 1 week later, Ruth's attorney read the will. It was simple. Ruth left everything to Shelby Ann Collins, her daughter. The house. 3 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a porch with a rocking chair, and $217,000 in a savings account she had built over 41 years of cutting coupons and skipping vacations. Gerald was notified as a courtesy. He was not a beneficiary. They had been divorced for 22 years. I am told his reaction in the attorney's office was brief. He said, "That is impossible. She would not." And then Donna pulled him out of the room. 2 weeks later, I received a certified letter. The letter came from a law office I had never heard of. Victor Hargrove, attorney at law, specializing in estate litigation. The language was formal, but the accusation was not. Gerald Collins was contesting Ruth's will on the grounds that the individual identifying herself as Shelby Ann Collins was not, in fact, his biological daughter. The filing alleged that the real Shelby Collins had disappeared from all public records approximately 15 years ago, and that the woman now claiming the inheritance was a fraudulent party using a stolen identity. I read it twice. Then I read it a third time, because I wanted to make sure I was not imagining it. My own father was telling a court that I did not exist. The logic, if you could call it that, was built on absence. No state tax filings under my name from 2012 to 2020. No voter registration. No social media accounts. No property records. No utility bills. 8 years with no civilian footprint, followed by a woman who appeared just in time to claim a dead woman's savings. From the outside, if you squinted and ignored everything else, I suppose it looked suspicious. That was the point. Victor Hargrove was not building a case on evidence. He was building a case on gaps. What neither of them understood was that those gaps had a name, the United States Army. And every single one of those years was documented, verified, and stored in a system neither Gerald nor his small-town lawyer had thought to check. I put the letter on my kitchen counter. I made coffee. Then I called a woman named Rachel Whitfield, a probate attorney my former commanding officer had recommended 2 years earlier. "They think you have nothing," Rachel said after I explained. "This is going to be straightforward. They just do not know it yet." Rachel Whitfield was the kind of lawyer who wore reading glasses on a chain and could make you feel like she had already won before the first hearing. She had practiced probate law for 14 years and had handled 3 identity-related disputes before mine. She was methodical, calm, and she never raised her voice. We met at her office in Arlington. I brought everything I could carry. My DD-214 discharge form, my civilian identification, my passport, and a folder of correspondence between me and my mother dating back 15 years. Rachel spread it all out on her conference table and spent 40 minutes reading without saying a word. Then she looked up. "His case is built on absence," she said. "The gap in your civilian records. No tax filings, no voter registration, no digital footprint for 8 years. His lawyer is hoping the court sees that gap and draws the wrong conclusion. And if they do, they will not. Because we are going to fill that gap with something Gerald's lawyer never bothered to look for." She explained the process. An impostor claim in probate court requires clear and convincing evidence. The burden was on Gerald. But a well-presented gap could create enough doubt to delay the estate for months, maybe years. That was likely the real strategy. Stall, exhaust, force a settlement. "They are not trying to win," Rachel said. They are trying to wear you down. I told her about my service, the classification, the years that existed in government systems but not in any civilian database. Her pen stopped moving. She looked at me over her glasses. We request your service record through JAG, verified, sealed, court authorized, and we let Gerald